Hello viewers, this is Family Matters and I'm your host Pete Mwanza. It's good to be back on the air, and with me are three distinguished guests. I will allow them to introduce themselves, starting from the guest on my immediate left.
Greetings viewers, my name is Leonard Chirenje and it's a pleasure to be with you.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from where you're listening in the world. My name is Asara Judith Marian and I'm also excited to be on this panel. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Solomon Michael Seringeorgi again, and I'm very energetic this morning to participate in this particular episode of Family Matters.
Thank you very much, guests, for introducing yourselves. I know I have a few veterans here. So Leonard and Solomon have been with me on a couple of series now. It's always good to see you back, guys. And we have Judith making her debut on today's session, and you are truly a lily among the thorns. We are so glad that you managed to join us today for this session. So just to remind the guests, what is Family Matters? So Family Matters brings together a group of like-minded people. They have different backgrounds. They have got different persuasions. They have got different hobbies. They have got different professions. But one thing alone binds them together, and that's their passion and love for the family. Today, we're going to look at a very important and pertinent topic that is affecting millions around the world. We're going to talk about the topic of addiction. And in particular, the topic today, or the subtopic today, will be pornographic addiction or porn addiction. So to kick us off, I will ask Solomon just to define or help us understand what addiction is.
Oh, thank you, Pete. So generally, addiction could be understood as a chronic condition, actually, where a person gets involved in excessive use of certain substances, for example, or gets involved in certain behaviors that become so compulsive that they're unable to actually get out of that by themselves, despite knowing full well the dangers or the consequences that come with that. For example, for substance abuse, we have alcohol, where people have excessive consumption of alcohol. We have, drug abuse, where people just deliberately consume cocaine and all these other kinds of things, despite the consequences that come. But we also have behavior, where people get involved in these days in internet, addiction, where you're preoccupied with a lot of media content, despite the fact that it's consuming a lot of your time, or pornography, or things like that.
Thank you very much, Solomon. So you touched on pornography, and I think that's the myth of today's topic. Judith, what is pornography?
I'm going to use the research of Dr. Anna Lambach. She's a psychiatrist in Stanford, and she says, just to define addiction as I move into pornography, it is a loss of choice without even being aware you're losing your choice. When it comes to pornography, it's not just material we are consuming, it's even what we are listening to. It is those subtle things like what we call soft pornography. So ideally, pornography entails pictures that are distorting what the physical person would be. For example, a woman is not depicted as a woman, it's an object of pleasure. Then we have the age of all this erotic literature that defined what love and sex was. So for pornography, the attack is not just the persona, the human being. You're attacking even the mind and the idea of what somebody should look like. So if it's going to be a man, we are looking at something very in-depth. It is about power and dominance. So I am teaching somebody that this is what a man should look like.
So Judith, I'll just stop you there. So okay. Help me understand. So how does pornography look like? I know you've sort of tried to lay down some base there, but for a layman, for someone like me who is not into, what is pornography?
Now, pornography is erotic literature. That's the first thing. Maybe magazines or books or videos that show explicit images of people having sex. We have to be very particular, having sex. And then pornography could also be what we are listening to these days, there are audios where you're having, I think it's called a SMR. Just the sounds are meant to excite you, encourage you, and make you fantasize about, sex. So the leading is, you have a picture, you have an image, it has to lead you to think about sex.
Thank you very much. Now, Leonard, I'll be coming to you in a bit. I would like you to sort of drill down in, this pornography. So how does one get addicted? And particularly, I would like you to address the connection between pornography and the brain. But just before that, I did a bit of research before coming on air, and I would like to share a few statistics with our viewers today. And these are statistics based on the United States of America. Okay, that's where we find a lot of information. But this, it's pornography does not only affect the US. It cuts across. And the statistics I'm going to share with you sort of paint a picture of what the magnitude of the problem here. So 28,258 users watch porn on the internet every second. $3,075 is spent on porn on the internet every second. 372 people are typing adult in the search engine every second. So those are the second-based statistics. Look at the everyday or the daily-based statistics. So you find that 37 porn videos are created in the US every day. 2.5 billion emails containing porn are sent out every day. 68 million search queries related to porn are being practiced out there. And 116,000 queries related to child porn are being received. So I'll just pause on that. So this is a big deal. Leonard.
Thank you, Peter. What you've just mentioned there, the first thing I want our viewers to be quite aware of is pornography is a big business. All those ticks means that someone out there is making a lot of money. And we must then ask, how do they want to keep us connected to the material that they are posting? And it goes back to the brain. You see, the brain, the most basic part of the brain is that it has got a reward system, a reward pathway. And that reward pathway depends on a very, very important chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is the one that gives you that jolt of satisfaction. And it is a natural and very important chemical for the reward pathway. Why do we need a reward pathway as human beings? You need to be reminded that you need to eat food. So dopamine gives you the satisfaction after you eat bananas, fruit. Then it reminds you that you need to keep on eating that. That satisfaction that you get. Here's what addiction does. The food that you eat, it releases a very good and sufficient amount of dopamine. When you exercise, the body releases sufficient amount of dopamine to reward that pathway and remind you to do it in the future. But now, if you are looking at sexual images, the dopamine level has been shown that is sufficient enough to be 10 times more what is required by your brain. And as such, you want to watch it more because you're getting more satisfied. Now here's addiction. When you hit the ceiling, you no longer are capable of producing that enough chemical of dopamine to get satisfied. So you need more. With pornography now, you move on from one level to the next. First, you were just watching naked women. Next, you want to watch them having sex with 2 or more partners. After that, you now want to watch child pornography. You now want to watch bestiality, animals and women. You want to watch interracial. All this is because you have now hit the ceiling. You want more. You want more because dopamine is no longer being produced enough to give you that satisfaction, causing addiction. That is the problem. And now it is now a physiological problem because mentally you can no longer balance your life. You no longer have enough time to do other activities. You just want to watch the pornography. And it affects all other facets. Then it becomes a physiological problem. You see, you are no longer exercising. You're gaining weight. You no longer find pleasure in your partner. Social problem. You no longer perform at work. Why? Because you're watching pornography.
So this is, I mean, you've really downloaded a lot there. And I'm just trying to soak that in, and I believe the viewers are trying to do so. Really, thank you very much for articulating that link between addiction, and it could be any addiction, but I think you've honed in on porn itself and how it's that. So Solomon, who can get addicted to porn?
I think, to be honest, we're human beings. And we can say that some people might be more vulnerable than others, but in general, anybody is a target. Especially if you expose yourself, if you allow yourself to be in the right place and the right time to trigger these pathways. And what I mean is that if you're in front, if you spend a lot of time on a lot of media channels, you cannot control what you receive. Just like when you're in front of the TV, well, back in the day, it used to be such that everything is filtered, and there is a hierarchy of bosses that would go and say, no, this is not appropriate for this age, before it gets aired out. But now you just log into your thing, and as soon as you swipe, you're bombarded with all this information on your Facebook, on the media channels, on the internet. Some of them get deleted sometimes by YouTube and whatever, but by the time, sometimes it's too late. So anybody who is in front of media today is a potential victim that can be arrested by this issue of pornography.
Thank you very much. So you're saying no one is immune, basically. That's what you're saying, and we all have some vulnerability. And I think in the second half of the program, we'll look at some of the best practices. So stay with us, dear viewers. I'll be coming to Judith, but before I do that, a bit more on the statistics. There again, we're looking at the American community here. 200,000 Americans are classified as porn addicts. Now, Leonard, I would like you, after I finish these, to really talk about, from a scientific standpoint, what scientists say about porn addiction. Is it proven? And if not, then what are we talking about here? So I would like you to sort of address that. Because we're being told that 200,000 Americans are classified as porn addicts, and I'm putting this in inverted commas. 40 million Americans regularly visit porn sites. 34% of internet users have experienced, and I think this is what Solomon was talking about, have experienced unwanted exposure to porn content. Things just popping up. Right? And I guess this is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But before I come to yourself, Leonard, Judith, how can porn impact a marriage relationship?
Well, the first thing we have to realize, we are living in an over-compulsive consumption of romance in this generation. Everyone is a relationship expert. Everyone has a book they are writing. Everyone is talking about sex. It's no longer hidden for us. In the past, you understood about sex maybe, I think in science at school when they're teaching about your body, but right now, even the little children have access to this. Why we have so much consumption? There is quantity, there is variety. So having said that, how does it affect the marriage? I like what a certain YouTuber did say, and they were having a conversation with Dr. Lambert, and they said, when men look at pornography in the sense of 50 Shades of Grey, it's one of the start of the pornographic era when 50 Shades of Grey was put out. Men watched pornography for dominance. He's a married man, he comes home, asks his wife 3 times, please, I'm in the mood, I'm not in the mood. So he's going to watch pornography to fantasize about a woman who does not say no to him. So with this, the man now finds a source of satisfaction, fantasizing about sex with another man having sex, not because he's watching the man. It is that dominance he's having. And in 50 Shades of Grey, we had a lot of abuse in it, dominatrix. And then I'm thinking, okay, I think this is what would make me very happy. So we are seeing, because of the mind, the dopamine, men have been, formed in such a way by the ideas in society to believe that this is what sex should be like. They've been educated, this is it, in their little circles. Now, in the marriage, how has pornography affected? Men have erectile, dysfunction because he's been masturbating. From pornography, there is masturbation. Both move hand in hand. You can't, separate.
Is it possible to watch porn without masturbating?
It is impossible.
Oh, Judith.
Because
Judith is saying this with such confidence.
You are satisfying your mind.
She's speaking from the ground.
You are satisfying your mind, letting you know, because I'm seeing this. This is what I deserve. You come back home to your wife and you want the same things you've seen.
And you're not getting it.
Yes, you're not getting
So
it.
so there's a disconnect.
Yes.
So that's actually to affect the dynamics in the marriage.
Yes,
This is a good point.
Okay.
This is a good point.
So basically, before you interrupt me, that cognitive disconnect comes in where you have what you've seen in your reality and what you are seeing. And the second thing is because of the pornography you're watching, everything in your life is going to fail, even financially. You need to subscribe. So half of your money is going. Before you know, you're getting new girlfriends, you're getting side chicks, and right now social media, I'm a young person, they're saying side chicks are fine, for the marriage. How did this begin? From the pornography you saw. Your wife wasn't giving you this style you wanted. So the other girl at the university who's young will actually give it to you at a price, which is hypergamy. Some are actually willing to give married men sex. The wife is not going to give it to you. Where did you learn this from? From the pornographic videos you were watching. So families are in shambles because of pornography. But also we are seeing men are being absent fathers. Half of the money and the time he should have spent with his family or for his family, he's spending on somebody else. So a generation is being broken.
So Judith, let me just stop you there. So you seem to have talked a lot about men, but my statistics here say a third of porn users are women. So anything to say about that?
Well, the reason now, back again to this study about the 50 Shades of Grey, women actually are looking at their husbands as passive. So the man showed in 50 Shades of Grey is using, dominance. He's tying his wife up. So it's the idea of security. So when a woman is watching pornography, she's thinking, oh, he's a secure man. Look at him. He's taking charge. But your husband, in the home, you ask him to do things, he's doing nothing. So the idea of having a man who's giving you security makes pornography quite interesting. And the reason why women find themselves, having pornography is because they're looking for a source of security, and this gives them that security. I think that is the inbuilt issue of pornography.
We'll come back to that. Leonard, can you please address the question I raised earlier around science and what are scientists saying about this? Is there such a thing as porn addiction?
We are actually starting to try and find real studies that look at this concept of porn addiction. What is real is that there's a dopamine effect which is associated with watching porn. However, porn addiction in itself has not gained ground in scientific studies. And while it is a problem we must acknowledge, we have to be careful so that we really find out the real characteristics of porn addiction and the harms. We can discuss the harms. We can discuss the characteristics. But we should be looking at really where do we find porn addiction? What does it look like? Then if there are proper studies that have been found, because if you look at the statistics we have there, we are basing them on people watching porn, the time they are spending and everything of that. But a real study that has been made, it's difficult to get the real statistics. Why? Because of the stigma. No one is willing to tell people that, yes, this is my problem, because people now start pointing at you that you don't have self-control, you don't have this. And so in this platform, we should try to use the knowledge that is there to make sure that we find solutions without, even though we might not have a real clear definition of the porn addiction, we must acknowledge it's a problem which needs a solution.
Excellent. Solomon, I'll be coming to you very shortly. I would like you to address the difference between compulsion and addiction. Is there a difference between compulsion and addiction? But before that, and we're just coming up to the break now. Now, according to the National Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families 2010 report, 47% in the US reported that porn was a problem in the home. 47%. Porn use is on the increase. Marital infidelity is also on the increase, and it's like, they're trending. It's a directly proportional equation or rise on that. Then I found this to be really, really sobering. 56% of divorce cases involved one partner with an obsessive use of porn on the internet. Compulsion and addiction, what's the difference?
In my opinion, actually, they're not so much that different in the sense that one leads to the other. I would like to say that addiction is the finished product of what compulsive disorders would have modeled along the path. So it all starts out as this one kick wonder, one hit wonder thing. Oh yeah, we were in a group and we watched this thing, but then in isolation you go back and reminiscing about these things. That is the beginning of the reward system that we're studying with Leonard, in the sense that the questions raised in your mind, the levels of dopamine are misplaced, and then you're satisfied. Eventually you want a little bit more. So that is the little bit of compulsion. Then when you do this 3-4 times, the threshold level of satisfaction actually goes even higher. The body demands more, either more time or another level, more challenging pornography than the one that you watched. And as a result, you're becoming more compulsive. Eventually what you see is an intensive, excessive use or abuse of this interaction of pornography that ultimately leads to what we call addiction, where you're becoming helpless, thus being disconnected to the world. Every time you're not able to rescue yourself, that is an addiction. And if you're not able to independently, salvage yourself, saying, I have to stop this, if you're not able to do that, that is the result of excessive compulsive treatment.
Thank you very much, Solomon. We're going to take a break, dear viewers, and I would like to encourage you, if you have any questions or comments, please keep them coming through. We're going to address some of your questions when we come back from the break. But after the break, we're actually going to look at, okay, if someone is struggling with excessive porn use or porn addiction, what can they do? See you in a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm happy to be here again. Today's special message is about porn addiction. Breaking free from porn addiction is a journey towards reclaiming your true self. It takes courage and determination, but every step you take is a step towards healthier relationships. Improve your mental clarity and a deeper connection to your own value. Remember, it's never too late to seek for support and make a positive change. You have the strength within you to overcome this challenge and create a more fulfilling life. You got this, my dear. See you next time. Bye.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and you are on Family Matters, and I'm your host, Pete Mwanza. I have Leonard, I have Judith, and I have Solomon looking at the topic of porn addiction. In this segment of the program, we'll be actually looking at, how can we help someone with a porn addiction issue. We have a few questions here from our viewers. The first one is a viewer called Jane, not her real name, because we want to protect the privacy of our viewers. So Jane is saying, watching your program, I just realized I may have a porn addiction problem. Because why does Jane say that? She says, I usually watch porn for 2 hours at least every day. and I'm looking for something stronger, alluding to what Leonard had talked about earlier. So she says, how can I get help? Leonard.
So the first thing that we must do, just to contextualize, porn addiction is a physiological problem. It's like a disease. So the way we treat people who are sick is the same way we should treat people who are addicted to pornography. We should not judge. Like we say, it is your fault, you don't have the willpower. Such mentality has to change. Then the terminology, before we have all the other steps that we think. Calling people who are addicted junkies, porn junkies, then when they are recovering, we say you are becoming clean, and all the other terminologies that we have. Those things should not be found in the mouth of anyone who's giving therapy, whether you are a professional or you are just a relative to a person who has opened up. When somebody opens up such a thing, the first thing is, let's not use terms that are inappropriate, like junkies. We should look at them and tell them, thank you for acknowledging this problem. What steps can we take together to get rid of this problem? If it's a partner at the home, if it's a child, identify the source of the problem, which in most cases is access, our phones. How do we get free from our addiction to the phone, which leads to the addiction to pornography? Because clearly nowadays, no one is buying material books of pornography. Yes, you can read 50 Shades of Grey, but it is not as bad as watching it and listening to the sounds, which connects and raises the dopamine much, much more than reading. So yes, identify the problem, work together, and help each other in a very loving and amicable way.
So thank you, Leonard, for that. But this person, I know you've you've addressed several aspects, including the people around this person. But right now, this person, Jane, what should she do? Where should she go?
She has already done the first step. She has admitted the problem. It's
So,
not easy
admitting, yes.
she has already admitted. So it's no longer on Jane. It's on those of us who are going to help. So the first thing we must do to help her is not judge her. So Jane has done a step. We are going to hear from our colleagues the other steps that she should take.
Excellent,
But I think
excellent.
she has done the first step.
Acknowledging the problem, acknowledging there's a problem is step number one. Thank you very much. Judith, I'd like you to address, I've heard this term of conversion therapy.
Okay.
When it comes to porn. What is it, and is it a myth or is it something real? I would like you to sort of hone in on this, please.
Now, the first thing we have to understand about pornography, there's no such thing as a conversion therapy. You just wake up one day and say, hey, dump pornography, you've been watching it, move on. That is not possible. You're going to have withdrawal, just like any other addictions within, let's say, maybe alcohol or drugs. Today you'll be fine, tomorrow you're craving it because of that dopamine. Your brain is looking for satisfaction. So for pornography, the first thing, like Leonard said, is admit, I have a problem. Because the biggest problem with pornography addiction is you think it's not a problem. I've had people actually who say, you're actually satisfying yourself when you masturbate. I'm exploring my body. I'm understanding myself. So identifying the problem is a beginning point. So the other thing I wanted to handle, which I think is more practical for Jen, and then she's a woman. You had mentioned earlier on, the statistics of women watching pornography. There's what we call apps that actually block these pornographic sites. There's two I found. There's one, Covenant Eyes, and then Victory by Covenant Eyes.
So Covenant Eyes and Victory by Covenant Eyes. So what do these apps do, Judith?
So what the app does, it monitors your device. There's something we call cookies for those who are in IT. They're going to be able to track everything you're watching. So what this app does, it monitors all your activity on every website, captures every image. And then in this safe community, it's a Christian community, they're able to have different people, because many people are joining. It's not just Christians who have a problem, even non-Christians, even Muslims, Buddhists, everybody has a problem. So this community is such a way that the app was created to help everyone with the problem. It captures every image, every image, every website. Now in the app and in the group, I did test it out. It makes sure you have an accountability partner. Let's imagine this is a therapist you're trusting in the group. So this person is able to see all your daily activities, and then it red flags you and blocks these sites, even just by words mentioning, let's say adult, child, there are phrases used, Pornhub. Now that will be blocked. At the end of the day, your accountability partner is able to see what you've been watching. So I think that is a very good thing when one has decided mentally, I think I need to let go of this addiction. And then the one for Victory by Covenant Eyes, what it does, it's an introduction now to recovery. They ask you, what are your goals? I'm committing that today I'm going to let go of this pornographic addiction. It is difficult, but then you have other people in the platform. Just this morning before I came, I was reading, one person was saying, today I actually fell. Today I was drinking. So there are those little phrases of saying, I need help. Today I was tempted. So knowing there's a safe space that I can address these issues without my father knowing, my leaders knowing. I could be a spiritual leader, but I'm also addicted to pornography. So I found these pornographic blocking apps actually very essential, especially for tracking your phone activity, because people have found a way to bypass pornography with VPN. So even these pop-ups are actually handled quickly. So that will be something Jen would want to look at. Go to your Apple Store or Google Store and download Victory by Covenant Eyes, but also Covenant Eyes. And I've also seen the different other apps that she could use. I found that very progressive.
No, this is, I think, something tangible that that could be looked at. Thank you very much, Judith. Solomon, there's another question I would like you to address here. Question just came in from a viewer. They're saying, my husband is addicted to porn and our relationship has changed. He does not desire me anymore. What can I do to help him? So this is a viewer. Okay, let's go. Her name Mary. She's saying she's noticed her husband is addicted to porn. And there are many others out there. So what advice could we give?
Actually, to begin with, I would take this entire installation from Judy and sort of translate it as part of the solution for Mary. But actually that's a very big problem, especially if you see this day in, day out, and your husband is sort of deteriorating into this irreversible path. One problem could be of how much time are you actually spending. There is passivity and activity. If there is too much passivity in the house, there is a tendency for people to find their own safe havens where they can do this. If Mary could substitute we're not told exactly how much time the spouse partner spends on these pornographic sites, but it might be that we could substitute for this time for other activities. For example, you could go out for a jog. That could then substitute that time, the 2 hours or 3 hours that would have otherwise been devastating, to be used for health building. Is it time that could have been used around the dinner table where we can talk more as a family? That's one thing. The other thing is there's what they call digital detox, where you deliberately take time off, a holiday, and say, if internet or this media is the one triggering me, triggers basically. Identify your triggers and know that this thing entices me into this thing. Just step away from that for a day, maybe, for the start, and let's have feedback as talk to you. How did it go, basically?
So Solomon, you've talked about triggers. This is something very important. I would like to build on that. So what are some of the triggers for porn addiction? You've mentioned triggers.
Yes.
And I think Leonard, Judith, please feel free. What could be some of the triggers? Because knowing what you're saying is absolutely key. Knowing those triggers can sort of then help you address that. What are some of the triggers?
The most common, and my colleagues and I, but the most common, it's based because it's what in front of us basically, which is this thing. For example, if I read
but let's be practical, Solomon.
Yeah.
We will not get rid of our phones. Right?
Yes.
We need our phones.
No, of course. But what I mean is that the internet is a web that is interconnected with this thing. So when I start to go through my morning news, because I'm already sucked into a certain network, the internet is automatically going to start to seduce me with some sidelines, you know. It will start to suggest some ideas. As I'm watching news, things begin to pop up. So the first thing I do is, if this is the thing that is, I have to induce these some of these blockers, internet blockers. But there's also something called cold turkey. Cold turkey is another variation or variant of internet blockers that harshly actually filters all incoming traffic. So much so that you're unable to. It cleans you up, basically. It cleans what you see. That's the first trigger thing. The second trigger is the group that you interact. It could be that the people you hang out with are your triggers, actually. You know, your best friend at work, your partners. It could even be your spouse. Your spouse could be the trigger because you enjoy this porn thing too, but it has hurt you more than her. Let's watch a movie. Let's watch a movie. But in the end, you're more vulnerable than her. There are certain things we should be able to take out, such as those, to start us to start me on the healing.
Leonard, other triggers.
There are many, like he has mentioned. You see, we have so many variants of social media. We've got WhatsApp, TikTok. You want to see the latest song by J-Lo, and then someone is twerking on that. That triggers your addiction to pornography. Now, I'm more interested in the steps to help a partner to move away.
Yes.
The first step we mentioned was to monitor, isn't it? Then we have got all these applications that we use.
Yes.
But I feel that as a partner, the first thing that she must remember is to listen. If the partner is coming to tell you, I've got this problem, or they are not telling you, you have to pay attention to them. Then you must discuss with them in a very nice way the impact of pornography. Remember the I principle. I feel that you're engaging in this activity is affecting us in this way. We mentioned impact of pornography. Then we actually delve down on the possible solutions to the problem. I think we can help each other if we do A, B, C, D. So I always believe the solution to all the problems, first of all, after identifying it, comes back to communication between partners, between parent and child. A child is easy just to take away the phone, but your partner, you cannot. You have to really negotiate for that space to solve a common problem which is going to be affecting a marriage. Now we come down to the real issue here. Pornography was not very widespread when we only had televisions and newspapers. It is now widespread because of another addiction that we have to our media, our phones, our computers.
Yeah.
Kids are now learning online. If there's a flood, kids are learning online. We don't know what pops up when they are watching that.
Yeah.
And as a family, we have to be careful and to closely monitor each and every activity all the members are going through. If it's a Facebook group you have and someone is posting pornography, I would suggest you move away from it. If it's a WhatsApp group, I'm in a WhatsApp group with gentlemen. Sometimes it might happen, if you are in one, in your gentleman group, they might be posting pornography. You have to actually educate the other party and delete all of that. That's another step that a partner is telling their friend. This is how you actually deal with this in a practical, sober, and loving manner.
Please, can I add?
Yes, please.
In relation to that, we have to understand there's people who watch pornography for comfort. And then there's people who have triggers in their past, like trauma. Some people have been molested. So they grow up knowing, I think this is something I go back to because it's a drug of choice. That's the thing we have to know about pornography. It's a drug of choice. So an honest conversation with your partner, I'm actually struggling. Let's imagine she bumped into her husband watching pornography. You can't begin saying, okay, block right now. Can we have a discussion about your pornography? Because there's something called the sandwich method. Give the good, talk about the bad, and then give the good. Because you're watching pornography, I feel our family is breaking if we did this. So after having the conversation, can we seek help? Maybe a therapist would be very good, maybe the church, or can we pray about it? Because you may be having a spiritual background. Can we have practical? So when we are looking at pornography, let's also look at things like trauma. If the root cause of pornography is the trauma, can we address the trauma? Were you molested as a child? So the question is, even before you get married, understand someone's background, because most of the statistics you've forgotten about people watching pornography are in homes where parents are absent. Some of these people maybe have just too much time, like for the children these days, on their gadgets. For others, it's just stress at work. I'm stressed at work. I need a place to relieve. My wife is going to be my stress factor, or my husband. I come back, or maybe it's finances. So I think families have to be very open in communication with these issues.
Thank you.
That's my addition.
Thank you. Solomon, do you think families should be talking about pornography? Father, mother, children. Should they be talking about pornography, the impacts of pornography, and if yes, from what age?
That's a very good question. I think my people perish for lack of knowledge. Those are the words of a famous philosopher, from the literature. And it is true. If you don't talk about something, you're pretty much asking people to drive in the dark and figure it out themselves. If you prepare me ahead of time, I will not be shocked. And you're empowering me with the power to make decisions. Parents should be addressing these things. Just like any other thing that is important. It's a survival skill to have knowledge. And to know a little bit about pornography, of course you don't introduce the entire subject. That's an overload, especially for children. You can, there are over general ways of introducing these things. But really to have a proper discussion, probably at the age of 15 as teenagers, because you can control what is inside your house.
So just on that, my statistics here show that children as young as 11.
That's right.
Okay, because young ones as 11 have phones, have access to these computers, and these things are popping up. So the US statistics show that children as young as 11 are being bombarded with pornography every day. So don't you think 15 is a little bit far-fetched?
Well, I just threw a number in there, but I agree with the 11. And the reason is that children, once they cross the age of 9, it's believed that they tend to believe. They have more confidence in their colleagues at school than in their parents. So what I mean is that they would tend to believe, if their friends said something is true, they would tend to believe that more so than if the parents said that. So we tend to not have much control on these children once they cross into their teenage years. And yes, so probably we should even begin to talk about this probably as soon as they're able to understand the dangers of pornography. But as I said, we need to package these things. And as parents, we need training. Maybe I'm not the right... there's a lot of literature that would help us to introduce this as baby food. Really, we need this literature. Maybe we will post some of these sources for our viewers, but there should be guidance, just like education. You don't just right away start.
Yes.
You have to take baby steps.
Correct.
But there's not a clear-cut age number in which you start to discuss pornography and sex. No, I think at all ages it is possible, but the content and the packaging is what...
Thank you. I saw Leonard was nodding as you were speaking. Leonard, you wanted to say, to add something on that?
I think what the question you are asking is, how do we create safe spaces, especially for our children? And it's not easy nowadays. It was easy for our parents because we didn't have phones. I only got in touch with my first phone in 2018. My first smartphone, 2020. My son has a smartphone. And if I'm not careful, is in an unsafe space. So as parents, we have to create safe spaces. How do we do that? Number one, we must have that conversation with our kids. It's a difficult conversation, but it has to be had. We have to tell them exactly...
So how do you start, Leonard? How do you start? I can imagine.
You see, I had the story of a child who had a phone, and unknowingly they got caught up in Snapchat, and they got friends with a lady from the US who was sending him pictures of her bum. And the parents only realized it later on. The child was innocent. They didn't know what was happening. But this influencer, by having this child following her, means her readership or followership is rising, and she gets something out of it. Maybe she wasn't intentionally doing this. But if I don't talk, if I see that as a parent, I panic. My child is already into pornography, and yet they are not. So creating the safe spaces, talking down with my son, which I try to do, and I tell him the realities that are there. My son, I didn't have this. You now have it. But as you are having it, you are more exposed to the nasty things in the world. Most of the things in this world that we are living in are there to get money. And in the creation of money, we use the best form. And unfortunately, my son, sex sells. So you are probably going to see naked women. My son, be careful. If you see it, come and talk to me. I told my son that, and he does. He shows me. Hey, what is this, my father?
How old is your son?
10.
All right.
10. He needs to use the iPad for homework.
Yeah.
But when he's using them, it pops.
Things are popping up.
Says this,
Very
that we have found all these things and we have now put them because we had that discussion. I promise you, it's not easy, but it works.
And it has to
I am
be
not going to stop him from watching pornography, totally, but I am going to empower him with the knowledge of how to keep
Very
away
important.
from it. We
Very
cannot
important.
remove the birds from, we can remove the birds from building nests, but for them dropping poop on us, can't help that because they'll be flying.
Yes.
So pornography is the same thing. It's going to be there. But we can avoid the situation whereby our children are caught up in it. And by the way, as I talk to my son, I also realize that I need to create a safe space for myself. So as I help him, I'm beginning to realize how I'm also exposed to the same issues.
Thank you very much. We're coming up to an end now. Very, very quickly, you talked about dopamine there. A 2016 study, examined MRI scans of porn viewers. And guess what it found? It's actually what you talked about. Enhanced activity in the part of the brain that plays a key role in decision making and reward system, right? The brains, are being affected by this dopamine in the same way as you described it, Leonard, there. And my research here is showing that, the conclusion to this study actually says that literally changes were observed in the brain. The more, so there was an experiment actually, the more these experiment specimens viewed porn, the less the gray matter was sort of observed there. Another trigger as we close up is loneliness. I have statistics here saying loneliness is a trigger.
Yeah.
People born between 1977 and 1994, statistically 30% are classed as lonely, and out of these 22% say they have no friends, and this is actually a trigger. I think Judith had sort of mentioned this. So hey, listen viewers, if you are struggling, there's no shame in coming out and seeking help. This is what my friends have said here. We need help, and acknowledging that you have a problem is the first step to seeking help. Now, I would like to, as we close, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel there, try www.gatewaytowholeness.com. It's a safe space. Judith has talked about safe space in a bit. So www.gatewaytowholeness.com. You find there a safe space. It's a series of 8 sessions. They have been developed to help you overcome problems associated with porn use. That is a starting point. That's not the only, that's not the only safe space for help. But if you are really, really struggling, that will be the starting point that will help you seek further help. Very quickly, in less than 30 seconds, Leonard, your closing reflections and remarks.
Pornography is a problem, and we need to find a way to protect ourselves and our loved ones and our communities. And one way is to limit our use of social medias that expose us to those things. That's what I think is the basis of our victory over porn addiction.
Thank you, Leonard. Judith.
Before I conclude with your 30 seconds, one thing I want to address is pornography attacks the family. So the family structure is what has been attacked by pornography. So when we have mothers who are not, willing to be mothers, and fathers who are abandoning their children. I think the family needs to give the children a proper understanding of what masculinity is and femininity. Because when a man understands masculinity differently, full of dominance and abuse, he will abuse his wife. He will think pornography is going to be an excess for him. But also with women, what is femininity? What does it mean to be a wife, a mother, a daughter? That has to be addressed. So even as we look at pornography, let's go back to the family structure. So my parting shots are, it is not worth it, to be honest. Pornography is not worth it. If you can, with your might, which is of course impossible, start to let go. Admit I have a problem. I actually need help. That is the starting point, and that's my parting shot.
Seek help. Thank you, Judith. Solomon, last but not the least.
Thank you, Pete. So I think it's not an excuse to say I'm not an alcohol addict, or because based on the study you've given, the brain does not differentiate. I mean, it's impacted in exactly the same way. Whether I'm drinking alcohol, whether I'm doing gambling, whether I'm having internet addiction, the path of destruction for the brain is it's indiscriminate. You're gonna be, the catastrophe is the same. So the earlier the better to jump off this bandwagon of pornography as a way of self-satisfaction, and seek ways to get yourself on the path of healing.
Path of healing. We wish you a path of healing for those struggling, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Pete, your host, and my guests. Until next time.